Hello, everybody. This is the Monday Night Pod. Tyler and Fensky. Tonight, we're going to be talking about David and his first wife, Michal.
So we've been in Psalm 59, and as you said, the footnotes there is that it's when Saul sends men to ambush David outside of his house. His first wife, Michal, is a key role in the story because she's the one who forewarns him of this and then lets him out the window so that he can then escape. And tonight what we covered was just David's relationship with his first wife, Michal, and a few of the things that went into that. And we started with just kind of the backstory of it. So if you go to 1 Samuel 17, when David kills Goliath, one of the things that was promised to the man who had killed Goliath, so the king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. This is 1 Samuel 17:25. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his father's family from taxes in Israel. So that's where you give the daughter in marriage. That's where you get in 1 Samuel 18, where it comes up here now in verse 17, where Saul first tries to give his older daughter, Merab, to David. Okay, David's response is, "Who am I and what is my family or my father's clan in Israel that I should become the king's son-in-law?" So he doesn't seem too interested in this. And then they give Merab, Saul's daughter, to Adriel of Meholah. So she marries somebody else then. Okay? Now it says, Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David. This is verse 20. And when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. "I will give her to him," he thought, "so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." And we did touch on that tonight very briefly, but you can see Saul didn't exactly think too highly of his own daughter here, thinking that she would end up being a snare to David.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very interesting because it brings up the topic of, if you're going to get married, you want to make sure it's a good one, right? I think the church kind of falls into like the fairy tale thinking that there's one perfect person for me in life, and that's what God's will is. He's going to set me up with the perfect person.
Yeah, right.
There's no, I wouldn't say there's a one. There's good ones and then there's bad ones, right? So you want to do all you can to make sure you're prepared to pick a good one, right? And certainly everyone is different, right? Everyone has their own traits, proclivities, qualities. You can, however, kind of get yourself more prepared and just having a general knowledge of, okay, what is female nature? What is my own nature? And kind of give you a better foot going forward, going into it at least, of what your expectations are. Don't expect there to be a perfect person for you. Just realize, hey, there's good ones and bad ones. I want to, if I'm going to make this decision, it better be the best one possible.
Yeah, and we touched real briefly tonight just on Matthew 19, where when Jesus questioned on divorce, it said some Pharisees came to test him. They asked, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason?" "Haven't you read," Jesus replied, "that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female and said, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two but one. Therefore what God has joined together, let man not separate." This is very interesting. He says, "Why then," they asked, "did Moses command that a man give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away?" Jesus replied, "Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard. But it was not this way from the beginning. I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for marital unfaithfulness, and marries another woman, commits adultery." The disciples said to him, "If this is the situation between a husband and wife, it is better not to marry." Jesus replied, Not everyone can accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given." Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like, when you're going into, you talk about that dynamic of marriage, it is important to just understand the gravity that God places on that. Mm-hmm. It's not something to just do rashly or impulsively, or without just kind of careful consideration to, is this person a good match? I saw something interesting a couple weeks back, and I thought it had some real good validity, but they were saying, the marriage rate was a lot better when marriages were still arranged.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously there's been a lot of things culturally going into just the divorce rate, right? Where now divorce is not looked upon as some kind of terrible thing, whereas it was, right? So there's a real cultural expectation that when you got married, you stayed together. So that's a huge factor too. But they were noting that just in arranged marriages, one of maybe the advantages of that was that families were selecting, somebody who, just similar viewpoints and similar backgrounds where, like, okay, this person will match well with this person, right? Because they kind of view things the same way.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously we've kind of gone to the more romantic model in Western society, right? Where it's like, follow your feelings and, are you in love with this person and so on and so forth. It's like, okay, what's effective, what's not. But either way, it's like you see the gravity that, the Bible places on marriage, and you want to make sure that, I'm making as wise a decision as possible so that I'm not putting myself in a position where, as the Lord says, that then if, you're getting divorced, you're committing adultery.
Yeah.
Right?
There's some gravity to it. And we definitely see that here. Speaking about good ones and bad ones, Saul tries to snare David by using Michal to be a bad one for him. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. So I will give her to him so that she may be a snare to him and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So Saul said to David, now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. And then he orders the attendants to say similar to him. They repeated these words to David. This is verse 23. But David said, do you think it's a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I'm only a poor man, a little known. So once again, he doesn't seem too interested in this. When Saul's servants told him what David had said, Saul replied, say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies. Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. So we've talked about this in prior weeks, that was Saul's initial way of trying to go at David, was he was hoping that he was going to just die in battle with the Philistines. Okay, and we talked about how that then came to pass itself on Saul, 1 Samuel 31, right? The ill that he wished on David came back on him, right? But that was his original plan here. But this is interesting here. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So it flips here where he's not interested to now all of a sudden, he is interested now in marrying Michal. And it gives you a real good insight into his personality. And obviously we talked about that in depth tonight.
Yeah.
Right? But it goes from he's not interested and now he is, just based off of, he's got to go out and kill 100 people for her now.
Which was his natural talent, right? That's literally the gift that God gave him and what he became recognized as, like you were saying tonight, is he was known as a warrior, right? So when you tell a warrior to go out and kill people, it's like, oh, I could do that,
Right, and a key point, even before he was in the palace, even before he killed Goliath, he's identified as a warrior. That's in 1 Samuel 16, where, they're seeking out somebody to play the harp, and they say, I have seen a son of Jesse of Bethlehem who knows how to play the harp. He is a brave man and a warrior.
Yeah.
And then obviously, we've talked about that key verse there in 1 Chronicles 28, where the Lord, right, is saying, you are a warrior. This is what he was called to do. We talked about the problems he got into with Bathsheba when he wasn't walking through on his purpose of being a warrior.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's a lot of benefit to realize here is because you reference to where David would end up, right? He would end up being the king of Israel. He would end up having an army of 1.3 million people underneath him. No. That's not where he is here.
Yeah, he's operating with 1,000.
1,000.
Right? That's in verse 13.
1,000, right?
Right.
So although these things are revealed to him, they're prophesied over him. This is what you will be.
Right.
This is the destiny you will have and walk in. But today, he's leading 1,000 people. And today, he's given the task of, hey, kill 100 Philistines, right? And he loves that so much that he ends up killing 200, right?
Right, goes out and kills 200, yeah.
Shows his attitude and his focus was, I'm going to be excellent on my level, like you talked about tonight. Whatever the Lord has given me in this moment, in this season, I'm going to put my best foot forward at it. I'm going to have the positive attitude towards it. I'm going to execute as perfectly as possible with as much care and intentionality as possible because I care so much what the Lord has for me and how I'm going to have to answer to him and how faithful I have to be towards him. And that was his mindset. I'm going to be faithful to the Lord because this is what he's given me in this season. He was so in tune with that.
Right. Yeah, you're never going to be successful with the 1.3 if you're not faithful with the 1,000.
Yes.
Right? And it, like you said, that's just encapsulating that. It's such an important concept. So many people are always looking forward.
Yeah.
And especially if you're, you are more of a visionary and you do have dreams and you do have goals, you're always kind of living mentally in the future. and not realizing that the future's not going to come about if you're not being excellent where you are right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think like, oh, if I got into that role, then I would turn it on. Oh, if I was put in that position, then I would be awesome. It's not how it works, right? You have to be faithful over a few things to be given many.
Yeah.
Right? Luke 16, Matthew 25, right? So it's that faithfulness over a few things that now positions you to actually be successful with the more.
And
right?
another point you hit tonight was a lot of times the reason why people get caught up in thinking about the future and not just being faithful over what's right in front of them is because they think it's just going to be easy.
Yeah.
Right? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we just kind of talked on the concept of, the problem. A problem can become thinking. The problem is thinking that it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, if something is worthwhile, there's problems built in, right? There's going to be adversity, because if there wasn't, then everybody could do it.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason that it is special in the first place is because there is difficulty. So that it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
But then if you think it's going to be easy, then you're kind of shocked when there's difficulties and adversity, and sometimes that'll fill you with disappointment, and that disappointment will cause you to tap out on the very thing that you needed to persevere on.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Just to kind of put a final note on that, my thoughts is, it sounds great. Oh, I'm going to lead the 1.3 million. Yeah. It sounds great, like, oh, I'm going to be the leader and king of all of Israel, right? And you think that, like, once you just have that, like, it's all going to be good. Right. But there's problems in and of that.
Oh, yeah.
Walking in that, right? And so just realizing that, hey, the problems that I have today are preparing me for the problems I have once I get there. Right? And a lot of the blessing is found in the struggle, right? In the preparation that comes from it, right? And the only way to get through it and to handle it well is to be faithful. You're going to have to be faithful no matter what, right? And just to have the mindset of, I'm going to put my best foot forward no matter what, that just makes it a lot easier, right? Because once you realize, once you expect it to be difficult and you just accept that, in a way it becomes easier, right? Because you're just humble enough to do it.
Yeah, right? You expect the challenges and you take them on and you become a problem solver.
Yeah. It's less of a thing,
right? So. You see this where he's told 100, and he's pleased by this, right? Now he's pleased to become the king's son-in-law and marry Michal. Mm-hmm. He goes out and kills 200. So you can see just how proficient he's becoming at this. Yep. We say this in here all the time, but you're going to have to become a PhD in your discipline to be great in anything. You got to know it inside and out. What I thought of was this this weekend where this pipe just leaking and all screwed up, and I'm like, man, I am way in over my head on this. And it was actually Lester, okay, who's just outstanding handyman, okay. So he comes over and literally just does this job in probably 8 minutes.
Wow. Like,
shocking. Like, shuts the water off, and then it's just like tool, like cut, like sand, bang, bang, done. I was like, wow. Like, I was in, like, just almost in awe watching this guy work on this, where I'm looking at this project, and I'm like, okay, I already screwed this up once, and it's like, I don't even know how to go about it next. I don't even know if I'm going to get it right. Yeah. And he just knocks this thing out in like 8 minutes like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was impressive to see this guy just working at it. But it's like, okay, here's this, almost 30 years of doing jobs like this, on houses, where this guy's just an expert at it. But it's like, that's the level you're going to have to achieve in whatever discipline, whatever God has called you to do. Because remember, there's not a right or a wrong. Whatever your hands find to do, work is for the Lord, not for men. And you got to become that PhD with it, where you become excellent on your level with it. And that's what you see out of David is, he's become so good at it that, Saul thinks he's sending him out to his death by telling him to kill 100. And David goes out and kills 200. Yeah. Right?
And why would you just kill the 100 when you're capable of 2, right? That's a teaching in and of itself, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Right? It says he brought their foreskins and presented the full number to the king so that he might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy the rest of his days. So now he is married to Michal. Mm-hmm. Now you get the dynamic from Psalm 59 where there's guys outside the house. It's Michal then, remember him, and Michal loves him, right? That's noted here. Mm-hmm. Okay. But she's the one who warns him. This is in 1 Samuel 19:11. If you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be killed. So she was the one paying attention to this situation, knew they were going to set this ambush against him, and warns him. Mm-hmm. Right? And so she lets him down through a window, and he flees and escapes. Okay, eventually Saul confronts her about this, and basically she just, says that, if David would have let her go, he would have killed her. Just, right, lies about it. But she's backing up David with this and helps with his escape. So this is where the relationship is at this point. Yeah. Right? So in all this, as we kind of go down these different trails here and cover different topics, we're still talking about Michal and David, right? Michal being his first wife. So now the sequence becomes where he's out on the run. Okay, he marries Ahinoam of Jezreel. Mm-hmm. Then he marries Abigail. This is in 1 Samuel 20:25. And then it notes there at the end that Saul has given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to somebody else now. Okay? Even more years go by, okay, where you now have this. Saul dies in battle against the Philistines. Mm-hmm. Okay, David goes up to Hebron. He's anointed king over Judah at Hebron. Mm-hmm. Okay, then you have this civil war where it notes here in 2 Samuel 3 that the war between the house of Saul and the house of David lasted a long time. David grew stronger and stronger, while the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. And then sons were born to David in Hebron. So it lists, he's also taken on further wives beyond those two and more kids. Okay, now the civil war is winding down. Okay, and David says, because Abner, who's heading up the house of Israel, says, "Make an agreement with me and I will help you bring all Israel over to you." "Good," said David. This is 2 Samuel 3:13. "I will make an agreement with you, but I demand one thing of you. Do not come into my presence unless you bring Michal, daughter of Saul, when you come to see me." Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, so that was the acting king for the house of Israel, demanding, "Give me my wife Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins." So Ishbosheth gave orders and had her taken away from her husband, Paltiel, son of Laish. Okay? It notes, however, her husband, went with her, weeping behind her, all the way to Abiram. Then Abner said to him, "Go back home." So he went back. Okay? So now she's back with David. Okay? David now becomes king over Israel. Now we're in 2 Samuel 6. And this is also gone over in great detail as well in 1 Chronicles 13, 14, 15, 16. And what you got going on here, to quickly summarize this backstory. So David has now stepped into his purpose, right? So we've talked before about how he's anointed, not appointed. Now he is appointed, and he is over all Israel. First thing, sacks Jerusalem, right? City of David. Wins 2 major battles against the Philistines, right? Where it notes then that, his fame is spreading because of this in Chronicles, mm-hmm. right? They try to bring the ark to Jerusalem. So if you remember the whole sequence with the ark with the Philistines, and it's noted that it was just kind of ignored in Saul's time. So they try to bring the ark to Jerusalem. What happens is, this is 2 Samuel 6:7, the Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because of his irreverent act. So basically what happened is the oxen that were carrying it had stumbled. He reaches out to touch the ark. It says, therefore God struck him down and he died there beside the ark of God. So they brought all Israel together to celebrate this. So everybody's here for the ark going up to Jerusalem. And it turns into this guy getting struck dead. And it says then David was angry because the Lord's wrath had broken out. And it says he was afraid of the Lord that day. Verse 9, it said, "How can the ark of the Lord ever come to me?" So this big event that they put together for this just goes completely awry. When this guy is struck dead and David's like, afraid, how can we even do this? So they put aside the ark in this household of the guy that was along the path to Jerusalem, right? And it says it was taken aside of the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. It remained there for 3 months, and it notes that the Lord blessed him and his entire household. So King David's informed of this, so now they're going to try again. Mm-hmm. This time, and this is an important note, and this should be a teaching for another week, but they're trying to do the right thing, but they were doing it with the wrong execution. So they're carrying their ark the wrong way. They hadn't looked into the law of Moses on this. Now they come back to it. We're going to get the execution and the systems right here. So we've been trying to do the wrong thing, but we're not being blessed because we don't have the right execution and systems in place. Right? Yeah, there's a teaching right there, right? We could stop the pod right now, and I've already taught, right? Now they're going to get the systems and strategies right and the execution correct. Big joyous celebration. It says it's being brought up with shouts. The entire house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouts and the sound of trumpets. So this is a huge moment for David, right? He's now in his calling. He's taken Jerusalem. They won these 2 major battles against the Philistines. Now they're getting it right with the ark. It comes up there, right? And it says that David, wearing a linen ephod, danced before the Lord with all his might. Verse 16, as the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David. So this huge moment. Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. So she's watching this whole moment. And when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. Now, a lot has changed since they first got married.
Yeah.
A lot. Right? They're both very young when they got married. Right? It turns into him having to be on the run. Right? She goes off and, is not she goes off, but she does marry somebody else, right? She's placed into another marriage. Mm-hmm. He's married other people. Now they're back together, right? Now all these events are happening where it's like he's gone from, just this guy running with 1,000 guys to this whole, arc of his maturity and his character being tested, right? And now he's finally stepped into his calling, right? And it says she despised him in her heart, right?
It shows making sure you're around people who love you for you, right? Because you referenced that, like, it's very possible David could have been a slightly different person when he's leading the 1,000 and then he's on the run, right? And it says that she loved him then, right? And she was willing to show that love through action of, I'm going to help you escape. Uh-huh. And then it's like, like you said, it's full maturity, right? He's married other people, circumstances have changed. Are you going to be with someone who just loves you based on the circumstances being right? Or are you with someone who's like a ride or die and like, no matter what, I'm here for you and I love you, right? It just shows the importance of that. That must have hurt too, right? Like seeing someone go from loving you and doing this for you to here's the ultimate victory. Like I just brought the Ark of the Covenant back to Israel, and it's like you're going to find a way to hate on that?
Well, it's a point you bring up. People do grow and change.
It's just
right. That's just
the reality of life.
Right. Yeah. Let's say that hypothetical scenario. Let's say you're 25 years old and you marry somebody. Mm-hmm. Right. There's going to be a lot that changes between 25 and 45.
It better.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then there's probably a lot that's going to change between 45 and 65. So it's just like people are complicated. Period. Yeah. But there's also just a growth and maturation and changing that goes on in life. Mm. So now he wraps this up, though, right? So they set the ark in its place inside the tent. More offerings are sacrificed. He sends everybody home with gifts, and all the people went to their homes. Right? What a day!
Yeah.
Right? And after this anger and then fear about the ark, now it's in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. Right? And just all the success he's having, all the above, right? But here it is. When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, how the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, disrobing in the sight of the slave girls of his servants as any vulgar fellow would. Yeah. So she's going to come out and chirp him about this. And like you said, it stings when it's somebody close to you. When you're getting it from mom, when you're getting it from dad, right? We ask kids to put up their hand today, and it's like, because the one kid asked the question, he's like, yeah, my dad's kind of, just on my case with this, that, and the other, and, it's a real just discouragement in his life, and, who else has, got a parent that, is saying some hurtful things. Every hand went up.
Yeah.
And it's not like a walk away and blame the parent, right? Because it's like we all sin in many ways. We all say many wrong things.
Yeah.
And that is the dynamic of relationships. And if you're under the same roof as somebody, right, that's going to happen. So it's like a, fruits of the Spirit moment: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. How can I exhibit that in this dynamic, right? And just pray for peace and grace with this, for at least for our, population, athletes. Sometimes the parents just don't know.
Yeah, they're just ignorant.
Right. Yeah, they just, there's a clash about what's going on with the kid, and they just don't know. Sometimes they think it's like this game should always be as easy as it was in Little League, and, he's just not trying as hard as he used to, or, that kind of thing. And it's just like, yeah, the game got hard, right? The game got a little bit harder, right? These guys in the batter's box are, their minimum salary is $3.1 million. They're really, really good at what they do. Right, so it's pretty easy to get touched up. It might not always be perfect. You know what I'm saying? And even on the lower levels, right, it gets highly competitive as things go up. But it's like it stings when it's coming from somebody close to you.
Yeah.
But his response is key here, and this is what we really got into tonight, and what we also wrapped up with. It said, David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house, when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people, Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord." So it's like, the response could have been the, happy wife, happy life thing. Okay, where, he's going to try to, soothe their feelings or, apologize or anything like that. That is not his response. His response is, once again, his focus on the mission, which was many things that made him great. That was a big one. Right, as he understood exactly what he was called to do, and he was honed in on that, and nothing was going to get in the way of that. Whoever came against that, whether that was enemies like the Philistines or the Moabites or the Edomites or whatever, right, or it was people around him like Saul and Michal in this case, or just the conflict from people around him, because he was focused on the mission. It was before the Lord. It was before the Lord, right? And I don't need to justify myself to you, because this is what I am called to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and he was so blessed for that. He kept that mindset, like you said, with everybody, right? And he just kept that tunnel vision of what does the Lord have for me right now? Walking
in the will of God.
Exactly, right?
Right.
Lord, what is your will?
Yes.
And how can I be faithful towards it?
Right.
Because he was a man after God's own heart.
Uh-huh.
And that's just naturally going to happen when your heart is in that position, right? And, an aspect of that is just the toughness that comes from it. You had a really good definition of toughness I think people would be blessed by.
Yeah, I think this is the definition of toughness. But toughness is your resilience and your resistance to the irrelevance of things and people that have nothing to do with your destiny.
Yeah.
Right? Can you actually just put the blinders on and do what God is calling you to do? And anybody, any circumstances, or any people that are coming against that, can you just...
Yeah.
That's what toughness is.
Yeah.
Because so many people, and, I've been guilty of it too, of course, right? Just getting distracted by different things, getting waylaid by different circumstances and people that have nothing to do with your destiny. We reference Psalm 34, right? Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Well, if you're walking in God's will, then that's a natural thing, right? Then it's just delight yourself in the Lord, and that's going to all come into alignment. That is Psalm 37 verse 4, right? But we talking about just the unconditional will of God. It's like, if you're getting in alignment with that, nothing's going to stop you.
Yeah.
That's where the focus has to be. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these other things will be added unto you. Instead, we're trying to seek this, we're trying to seek that, we're trying to manage this person's feelings, we're trying to manage that person's emotions, we're trying to make this all perfect over here. Just seek the kingdom, right? It was before the Lord, as David says, right? There's your key verse. It was before the Lord, right? And make that skin tougher, right? Get yourself tougher for the fight.
Yeah, and it makes everything so much more simple, right? He had many opportunities to try to please men.
Yes.
The thing about Saul's downfall, what was it? He started figuring, I'm going to please men, and this is more important to me than I'm going to please God, right?
Yes.
There are many times where David could have, I'm going to please my brother. I'm going to try to soothe my father. I'm going to try to soothe Saul.
Yeah.
He doesn't like this song.
Right.
I'm going to try to soothe, we have these enemies. Let's have a meeting of the minds and see how we can come to a resolution, right? You noted earlier with Michal, could have easily took the happy wife, happy life road, happy wife, happy life. Like, it's the Lord. I'm here to please the Lord. And anything that comes against that, I've already made my mindset, like, it's the Lord.
Right.
And it makes things so much more simple and easy to deal with, because it's like God's big and people are small. And what they meant for evil towards me, because I'm serving the Lord and I'm focused on the Lord will work it out for good. And actually, he might even bring it full circle onto you as a lesson not to go against the Lord, right? So it's like a word to the wise. If you want to be wise, like, learn from this and realize, okay, I'm seeking first the kingdom, and here's all the things that are going to come with that. Can I just stay faithful and stay obedient and just seek his face every single day, right? It's very complicated. There's so many things that can come about to distract us. But if we can just keep that focus one day at a time, it's like, the Lord's going to be with us, and we're going to see his hand in everything.
Yeah, what you were just saying made me think of one of my favorite verses in the Bible. This is Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
That's really good. Yeah, so that's end of Psalm 59, just the aspect of David and Michal in that situation. This is the Monday Night Pod, Tyler and Fensky.